Good morning, welcome to Wishwell Farms. It's gonna be a busy day of farm projects. And we're gonna start off with checking the greenhouses. Are you gonna help with farm projects today, Kipper? I know Tassie wants to help. Wanna go to greenhouse? Let's go. You like it in the greenhouse, don't you? Tomatoes are looking fantastic. We're getting pretty loaded up on fruit and starting to get some decent size. Just about big enough for making some fried green tomatoes. All right, greenhouse number 2. Wow, they're really growing. They're taller than me already. These are about 2 weeks behind planting number 1, where we were just at. As soon as Emma arrives, we will be working in this greenhouse today. We need to remove suckers, clip the plants to the strings, remove these bamboo stakes, which are still in from when they were little plants. And probably we'll start on removal of the 3 branches at the bottom of the plants. I'll just have to count some of them and see if they have their 13 branches that they need. We like to have 13 branches on our, mature branches on our plants. So once we have those 13 branches, we start removing 3 old ones at the bottom each week. I don't think any J-hooking needs done in here yet. Oh, there's one. The truss supports. So when we start seeing that happen, we'll hang J-hooks, like little truss supports, to prop up this fruit. And we'll also be doing fruit pruning down to 3 tomatoes. So we'll be coming in here with scissors and pinching off anything more than 3. Boy, it sure is going to be a beautiful day out today. Almost clear blue skies, and I think it's supposed to be up to 75 or 76 degrees Fahrenheit today. Tomorrow's even going to be warmer. I think we're going to be approaching 80 degrees, at least 78. So that will make that sweet corn germinate quickly. I'm actually going to check it today. It's been in the ground for probably 5 days. I'm guessing it's germinated, but it hasn't sprouted yet. So here in a couple days, I bet it'll sprout and we'll be able to row it down the rows. So I'm going to try to get that sprayed today, or get my nitrogen on it, because we got to get that on there before that corn emerges. But yeah, pretty happy with this weather we're having today. Let's check out the grape tomatoes. Wow, they're looking nice. Nice clusters of grapes. Look at all those beautiful tomatoes. I mean, they are absolutely loaded. These are almost full size. Tomorrow we'll be working in this greenhouse, putting another run of string trellis using the Florida weave, and stuffing some of these long suckers that got missed up into the strings. And like this one here, we don't want to leave that dangling on the floor to get stepped on and get dirty. Looking really good and healthy. I like what I see. And then over here on the final 3 rows, these are ready to go. We have our bags fully hydrated and ready to receive the plants. And I was short about 3 or 4 bags, so I decided to try mum pots. So we used to grow hardy mums, and I have a couple 100 buckets left over, so I put in our potting soil that we use for our mums, and we're going to try out putting 1 tomato plant in each one of these buckets. And if it works out well, I intend on doing that in the entire greenhouse. I'll probably use a bigger bucket than those 9-inch mum pots. Maybe more like a 1.5 gallon or a 2-gallon size. But if those do well, I'm gonna stop using these coconut coir bags just because they're expensive. It's far cheaper to get a cheap pot or bucket and fill it with mix. It's gonna be a little bit more labor, but more cost effective. And I don't like disposing of all this coconut coir bags. I gotta throw them in my dumpster and have them hauled away to the landfill, unless I would cut every bag open and dump the coconut coir out in the field. That's another option, but that is a lot of labor. Let's see what we got going on in here. These tomatoes are looking good. The first cluster of flowers are open, and I actually have my bees in here today. I just saw one. There he is. Pollinating the flowers with buzz pollination. Pretty cool how they do that. These stretched a lot more than I normally like to see, but it is what it is. They are growing well and will need a second clip. And over here on the other side is the second half of this greenhouse. This is the way all of them are supposed to look. These were just left over from our second planting, and instead of throwing them out, we decided to plant them. So we may be overloaded with tomatoes when these come on. I would prefer them to all be in this stage here. The flower clusters are not open yet. They're not even trellised to the strings yet. But these are looking real nice. This is a good stage to check to make sure none of the drippers are plugged up, because the plants have not rooted and established themselves down in the buckets yet. So if a dripper plugs up, the plant will wilt and start dying. So I like to come out here a couple times a day just to check the plants and look for wilting plants, which means that there's a plugged dripper. But so far so good, everything looks great. And our final greenhouse check this morning. This is our starter house. Plants are looking beautiful. These are our bell peppers. Just a couple more weeks and they will be ready for the field, as well as our eggplant. Seedless watermelon came up great. The yellow buttercup right here in the back row, some of them are still popping up. I thought I was having bad germination, but I think some of them just got pushed in a little too deep, because I see a lot of them still coming. But if you look down through here, I'm thinking we got 90% germination on our seedless watermelon this year. They look excellent. There's a bad spot right here. Maybe some seeds got missed, or yeah, maybe they're still coming up. There's one right there sprouting. So because of the way that we seed our seedless watermelon into those Ellipots, where we're manually pushing them down into those little cubes, sometimes they get pushed in a little deeper than they should be. So we get uneven germination, but I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing. There's our planting of beets. They're looking nice. And basil pots. Some of those are almost big enough to sell already. We got to hold them off for 3 weeks. They'll look really nice for our first farmers markets. This is dill, hasn't sprouted yet, and our second seeding of basil is coming up. I can see it. Not sure if you can through the camera. And some of my daughter's stuff, cilantro and parsley. The cilantro was planted a little too early, I think. And oregano, I believe. And this was her dill, and a mouse got it all. That's why I got a trap set. I actually did catch a mouse the other day. So down in the grape tomato greenhouse where I had those 3 rows that weren't planted yet on the coconut core bags, that's where these tomatoes are going right here. So one row is going to get our indeterminate greenhouse tomato plants. And then the other 2 rows are getting determinate red deuce tomatoes. Looking real good. We just transplanted these the other day. That's why they're not as dark green and lush as these. Seeded watermelon. Just seeded them a couple days ago, and our pollinators. So those will all be up here in a couple days. Some leftover tomato plants. Not sure what I'm going to do with those yet. And our first planting of cantaloupe. They look great. So as soon as Emma and I finish working in greenhouse planting number 2, which is going to take a few hours, we'll be back in here seeding cucumbers today. So right now we're removing suckers that are growing at the base of the plant that we often don't see when we're suckering the top. So we're not removing the 3 branches today, at least right now we aren't. They can wait a couple more days, I think, because they just now have about 12 to 14 branches. So in a couple days we'll come back in here and remove the bottom 3 branches. But today we're just getting these big suckers that have gotten out of hand and were missed. And these garden carts are nice. It saves your back, makes it easy to roll down the aisleway and work on the lower part of the plant. Check these out. 3 massive suckers on one plant. And the plant is actually one of the biggest and healthiest plants in here, so it hasn't affected it yet. But if I was to let these grow, it would just be a big tangled mess right here, and eventually it would affect the plant, and it would probably skip a set of fruit, and that would end up costing us in the long run. So this is by removing these branches. The cat likes to wander around in here. By removing all these branches, we're keeping these down to one nice stem. There's a big one. Don't like to see that. It's already got a cluster of buds on it. We want the plant to put its energy into fruit production, not growing more suckers. This is why you should wear gloves. It's like a plastic crust. It's really hard to get off. It's actually almost harder to get off than grease. All right, now we're doing some fruit pruning down to 3 tomatoes. I've explained this several times in other videos, why we are pruning to 3 tomatoes, but I'll explain it again. There are several reasons. First of all, it's a great opportunity to rid the plant of any ugly tomatoes, misshapen tomatoes. But the main reason we do it is we don't want to overload the plant with too many fruit. Because if we left 4 or 5 tomatoes, like this one right here has 5, if I left them all on here and did that for every cluster all the way up to number 7, which is where we'll be when we start harvesting down here at the base of the plant, there's a good chance the plant will be overwhelmed and it will give me a cluster of blanks. It'll skip a whole cluster, and that costs us a lot of money because it'll be happening in the entire greenhouse, and we won't have hardly any tomatoes to pick that week when that happens. It also allows the tomatoes to get bigger. If we would let each cluster have 5, 6, 7, or 8 tomatoes on them, they might not get much bigger than that. So by removing some of them and only leaving 3, they're going to get bigger, and they'll almost all be between a ½ pound and 1 pound in size. All right, we're planting cucumbers now. We have 15 flats of regular cucumbers and 6 flats of pickles. These are 72 count pro trays. We're loose filling them with this germination mix. And then we'll place our seeds on top, pack them down to the proper depth, and then cover them again. I've had several questions about what germination mix we're using right now. We're using Lambert LM GPS. Germination, plugs, and seedlings. All right, here's my planting spreadsheet. Cucumbers. I normally seed them April 15th to the 20th, but it is already the 23rd today. A couple days late, it's not gonna make a difference because these things will grow so fast. We're doing 3 rows. I hope to transplant them in about 3.5 weeks from now, between May 15 and May 20. We're planting them in 72 count trays. We're gonna transplant them 1.5 feet apart, and we're putting 2 seeds in each hole instead of 1. So when we come over here to drop our seeds, we've been doing mainly 1 seed, and we will continue to do that for melons and zucchini. But when it comes to cucumbers, we like to do 2 seeds. So we got Bristol, Brickyard, and Raceway. And those are our cucumbers, and for our pickles, we have Carolina and Eureka. Brickyard. I haven't planted pickles in many years. I'm only doing one row, 2 varieties, 3 trays each. Eureka will be abbreviated with an E, and Carolina with a C. How about a C-A-R? Car. All right, we got all of our cucumbers and pickles seeded. For seeding number 1, we will be planting cucumbers 2 more times and probably just do pickles 1 more time. We'll have them for early and for late. As soon as I finish watering these cantaloupes, I'm gonna head inside for a bite to eat. And then we'll be right back at it after lunch. We still got a lot of things happening on the farm today. A lot of things I gotta get done. But it's always nice to get the greenhouse work done in the morning before it gets too hot, because it's almost unbearable working in a greenhouse in the afternoon. All right, just finished up lunch, and it was a good lunch. If you're curious what I had for lunch, it was a ham and Swiss cheese sandwich, some cream of mushroom soup, and some raw cauliflower and ranch dip. All right, let's see what we've got here. He just filled me up. I'm hoping I don't have to fill up again. It was another $1,700 for about 10 days worth of propane. I prepaid for my propane back in December. I spent $9,000 to lock in a good price, and that is just about used up. So maybe 1 more small fill up next week. That money will all be used up, but hopefully I won't need to fill up again, because now that we're going to be into May here in another week, we should have enough warm weather that I won't be burning much propane, hopefully. So I just walked around and checked all the greenhouses again and rolled up the sides a little bit higher, because it is warm today. We're approaching upper 70s Fahrenheit. It feels like a summer day. So got to stay on top of those greenhouses to make sure they don't get too warm. I'm going to head over to our fertilizer and seed dealer right now and pick up a load of fertilizer to spread out in my fields, and another tote full of starter fertilizer that I usually keep on top of that pile of pallets over there that I use in my corn planter, my green bean planter, and in our vegetable transplanter water. So we're gonna go get that taken care of, and then if there's time left at the end of the day, I'm going to get a load of 28% nitrogen to put in our bulk tank at our farm, and then hopefully get some sweet corn sprayed tonight. But before I do all that, I have a little story for you. So right up here in my wife's landscaping, she was removing a shrub yesterday, and my son Gavin was here helping her dig it out. And it was rooted really well, really deep, and they couldn't get it. So he got a good trench dug around it, and I decided to use my forklift to pull it out the rest of the way. The problem is, I can't drive my forklift in the grass to get close to it because it would sink in the grass. So I parked on the edge of the driveway, actually put some boards out in the grass so I could drive into the grass just a little bit. Tied a chain to my forks and another chain to the bush, and lifted up the mast. I got about 12 feet high, but since I wasn't directly above it, the chain's about at a 45-degree angle. I'm probably 12 feet high, and I get it pulled out. And right when the bush came out, I sprung a leak. Let me show you what happened. So this hose here sprung a leak right there. And this mast, like I said, was up at least as high as those rafters in the barn and came slamming down, and hydraulic fluid went spraying everywhere. It was spraying up and hitting the top of the mast right there and splattering all over me. It got over everything. And I quickly jumped off the forklift to avoid getting completely doused. The forks slammed to the ground and I was dead in the water. So my mechanic friend came out last night, helped me take off this hose and find out where the leak was, and I'm going to go get that replaced right now. But to be able to move it, I had to get the forks off the ground. So I used 2 come-alongs here and jacked them up simultaneously, and that was enough to raise the forks up off the ground and then secure it safely with a heavy-duty log chain while we worked on it. So this definitely wasn't something I wanted to mess with last night after a long, hard day on the farm. And it's an added job for today to go get this hose fixed and get it put back together. But you know what? I'm glad it happened now and not on a Saturday morning in the middle of the season, loading sweet corn on these box trucks for farmers markets, because that would have been a disaster. All right, just down the road 5 miles from my farm is Metal Fusions. This is an Amish fella that does an amazing job at welding, fabricating, pretty much any kind of repair you give him, he will fix. And hydraulic hoses. All right, I got my shuttle tank here and I only got like 30, 40 gallons left, so I'm here to fill up with some more starter. The analysis is 8-24-4. I use this on all of my sweet corn and green bean ground, and we also use it on our 400 acres of field corn. And I also use it in my starter fertilizer water for my vegetable transplants. So I'm out here getting ready to spray my early sweet corn planting that I put in last Thursday, so 5 or 6 days ago. And I dug up a seed. Wait till you see this. Check that out. It's got a deep tap root, and the sprout that's getting ready to come up and emerge is about a 1/2 inch long. That is great news. And with these upper 70s and near 80 degrees tomorrow, I'm thinking we're gonna be able to row this corn, see it emerged down the row in probably 2 or 3 days. So definitely need to get my nitrogen on today. Well, it was a very long day on the farm today, but we got a lot of stuff done. And I thank you for coming along for the ride. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you all again next time down on the farm.